2023. One hell of a year for League of Legends. I've already gone through all the bad. If you didn't see that video, be sure to check it out. It's linked down below and it's on my channel. If you're not subscribed, be sure to do so. But as much But despite the bad things that have happened this year, there was a lot of good and a lot of positive steps forward for League of Legends that we can build upon for years to come. I've been excited to make this list for a bit now because I like talking about things that I enjoy more than things that I hate. So I ain't even gonna stall it. Let's kick this off. These are the top 5 best moments in League of Legends in 2023. Number 5. Actually, scratch that. Honorable mention. Number 6. While unfortunately 2023 was the year that saw Kadril leave the LEC for casting as he begins his solo career as a content creator and his co-streams absolutely started popping off this year, he had to have been the most entertaining co-streamer that was out there. There was no focus on negativity other than a little bit of shit talking that he did to Dom and some other creators. It was all just good vibes and good times the entire way through. And that was more relevant at Worlds than any other time. I don't want to spend a lot on this, but I just want to show again the clip of him heel turning. Best co-streaming moment of 2023, hands down, bar none. Not even close. I need Kadril to co-stream the LCS next year. I want to see it so bad. Anyways, back to the actual list. Number 5. If you can't tell, more of a dog person than a cat person. I had cats growing up, love cats, nothing against them at all, but dogs just offer that level of comfort and just like protection that I feel like cats are just very solo people, and that's fine. But there was a different cat this year that got scared away, and luckily we didn't have to deal with, and that was Yuumi. Yuumi got gutted this year. People hate her, myself included. I don't like the way she plays in game. Never have. Anytime I'm playing with a Yuumi support, I haven't liked it. And Riot decided to gut her this year because they can't quite figure out what to do with her. And not seeing her in games and not seeing her in pro play specifically has been a blessing. Riot also admitted this with Zed, that they keep his win rate lower because he's just an unfun champion to play against. And I think there's a very fair whole other video and discussion to be had there about like how to balance the game around like what's fun for players, what's interesting, like what's competitively best. But the fact that we just don't see Yuumi is a blessing. And I'm sorry to all the Yuumi mains out there that love her to death. By all means, I'm sure this is in your top 5 worst moments of the year. But for those of us normal people, this one is phenomenal. Number 4. The history of North America at Worlds is not great. The best team that we ever sent to Worlds in 2016's TSM, or at least like the best team in terms of perceived power rankings, dropped the ball harder than we've ever seen for NA, and ever since we've kind of just been a meme region for people. We occasionally have teams that make a run like Cloud9 in 2018. We've had teams that got out of groups like 2021's Cloud9, who notably got out with a 2-4 record, or maybe 3-4. It was negative nevertheless. But there haven't been very many moments where you're really proud of North American teams at an international stage. Most times at best, we're cheering for teams just to go even in group stage, maybe be close against Europe. Like that's been the goal for a long time. But something coming into this Worlds just felt different with NRG, even if people didn't believe it. This was formerly the CLG squad from last year. CLG, may they rest in peace, they're no longer a thing. They kept the same core of Dokla, Palafox contracts of 3 guys who kept getting passed over from different teams, and they were slowly starting to build up. We saw them get better and better and better each year. Now granted, when they went on to win the LCS this year, it was a shock, but it also came with Cloud9 kind of collapsing and the rest of the teams at the top like really not stepping up because Cloud9 3-0'd NRG just 2 weeks prior. But their playstyle was so much fun to watch, and it was like, wonder if they could do this at Worlds. And there were a lot of people that didn't believe, that just thought, you know what, Cloud9 has historically always been the team that's done it. They're probably going to do it again. Team Liquid has players that have performed at the international stage. They seem like the guys to do it. And then there was this ragtag team with NRG who were defending LCS champions, but once again got written off by the general community of like, there's no way they stand a chance. And guess what? It started off pretty ugly. Their game against Mad Lions is heralded as one of the worst that has ever been played at Worlds. It was a roller coaster as an NA fan, and if you're an international fan watching this, it was more like, But it ended up setting up a match with G2 versus NRG, a West versus West matchup, which, hey, you can complain about the format of Worlds now all you want. I don't care. It was a Western matchup to get out. G2 was favored by everybody. I don't know a single person that was picking NRG to get out over G2, given that G2 had already beat Weibo. G2 was already in like their 2-0 match to try and qualify there, and they unfortunately dropped the ball. Like, they were looking good. So when NRG comes out and pummels them, oh man, did that shit feel good. European fans were in shambles, not only because G2 would go on to miss getting out of groups. No European team would get out at all, but just because of all teams to lose to, you lost to NA doing it. And for North America, we finally had a squad that could stand up to Europe. It's been so long. It was like, oh my god, this is great. We were living on cloud 9 until we got 3-0 beat in the quarterfinals. We ain't gonna talk about that, but it was a phenomenal time to be a North American fan, and builds up so much hype and excitement going into next year as well. It's like, once again, people were favoring Cloud9 going into 2024, but yet here's NRG, defending champions. Can they level up even further? Because they're going to have to now to get to Cloud9's level. But they could do it. It's like, the amount of excitement that's coming for LCS now just feels different. All because that one series win over G2. Suck it, EU fans. I know I might lose subscribers for that, but I'm going to say it anyways. Number 3. When you say T1 2023, most people are going to think about the finals. They're going to think about the fact that Faker was finally able to overcome his demons despite the wrist issues that happened this year, like everything that was ongoing. They came back to absolutely stomp Worlds and would go on to win their 4th Worlds title. Faker would get his redemption. They truly are the gods of League of Legends. But it was their matchup against JDG that most people, I think, were looking at as like the true finals of World, especially given the series that we saw from them at MSI. While the World Series did not live up to the hype, the MSI series was unbelievable and the best of the year. Try to put Worlds out of your mind for a minute and just go back to the MSI narrative that existed. You had Korea coming off of Worlds where their 4 seed won, that everybody's like, okay, Korea's back on top. But JDG was just this all-star stud squad that people were like, okay, JDG versus T1 is probably going to be the matchup of the year. And luckily it was. It was a 5-game slobber knocker where it felt like either team could win. But ultimately, JDG would go on to take that series, and in turn, T1 would crumble in losers finals. The impacts of this series set up everything that came later in the year. Had T1 won this series and had T1 won Worlds, won MSI, which I don't think they necessarily would have. I think JDG would have bounced back better than T1 would have. The narrative for this Worlds would be entirely different. But without this series, without the close matchup that was T1 versus JDG at MSI, we wouldn't have had the Golden Road story later. We wouldn't have had Faker's redemption arc be as big as it is. There could have been this question of like, okay, well, is an MSI title enough to show that Faker's back, despite him obviously losing in World Finals the year prior? Instead, because we ended up having JDG versus another LPL team in finals, the questions for T1 just got even bigger, and the spotlight on them just continued to rise, and doubt continued to be sowed. I'm not going to say that this series was like the most mechanical or was like the best series to like individually watch of all time. I think there's so many series from Worlds last year that just were like peak entertainment. I think about the Deft inhibitor respawning as like an EDG versus DRX, and the amount of reverse sweeps that we had last year being just like unbelievable entertainment. But to go back and appreciate the importance of this single best of 5 and how it affected the rest of the year, yeah, that deserves to be here, in addition to the obviously good gameplay that it was. Number 2. Oh, Mark Z. In case you've been living under a rock and don't know who he is, he came fresh out of college and worked for Curse, aka Team Liquid, early on in their years as he was an analyst there, and slowly started working his way up the esports ladder. He, for the last few years, has been a notable co-host of Hotline League with Travis Gafford, has been on the LCS broadcast as a pretty comedic personality to a certain extent. His whole shtick has always kind of been the emo contrarian in a way. Like, it's really hard to put Mark Z's personality in a specific type or bubble. He's just kind of a jack of all trades. Even though he had some themes that kind of ran across, he'd just be willing to do anything and everything. That included this year content, where he took a massive step up and clearly led in a lot of different areas on broadcast, including the game shows that they did, catching up with Doublelift, which was the intro clip to this section. It felt like in a world where we needed somebody to step up and like really push content, as Pastry Time was doing more of the documentary series and like more of the formal stuff, we needed somebody just to come up and do comedy and like entertaining series, and that's exactly what he brought. He knew what we needed in the moment and did it well, which comes from the fact that he's an avid consumer of almost all media types. Whether it's movies, games, you name it, he knows about it. And because of that, the references and things that he's able to work into content were absolutely incredible and a boon for the LCS literally all year. He would have made the top 5 list for the year no matter what, but the end of the year just capped it off with something even more incredible. He is now going to be the LCS commissioner going into 2024 and help lead us towards hopefully the promised land that is the next generation of the LCS becoming sustainable and more enjoyable and entertaining for people as we hopefully grow this thing from what is a currently shrinking product. He's not taking over an easy task whatsoever. This might be the hardest thing that he has ever done in his life. But if there's any man that I trust for the job, it's gonna be Mark Z. I know there are some gripes from the community, especially like some of the older heads in the scene, about certain things that he's said and done in the past, to which I would say, guess what? Everybody's got shit that they've said and done, including the same people criticizing him. But I don't think there's anybody that understands and is more in touch with not only the LCS product itself, but also pop culture and what we need to grow this thing than Mark Z himself. This year has been his year in terms of NA production, NA broadcast, like NA everything League of Legends. He's been everywhere and doing everything. And for that, he clearly deserves number 2. Not a doubt in my mind, which leads us all to this. Number 1. You'll notice that I haven't talked about the general game of League of Legends this year, at least not yet. There were a lot of things that did happen this year. We had mythic items removed. We notably had a boy band group come to the game, which there were a lot of people that loved. Personally, it wasn't really my cup of tea. Like, I felt like the K-pop girl group in KDA just did more for me for whatever reason. The music just felt more in line with what I would personally like. And there were some fun skins and things that came to the game, but referencing back to the top 5 worst list, we started off this year on an all-time low. Cinematic wasn't great, community was in disarray, people wanted just a bunch of different things, and we needed something to calm the community down, something to like really give us hope that Riot could pull out all the stops and truly deliver a fantastic experience for fans that wasn't just tied to Worlds or MSI, but was its own unique thing for casual fans and those that just genuinely enjoy League of Legends. And we finally got that in the form of Soul Fighter. Soul Fighter might end up being the most important event in all of League of Legends history whenever we look back on this in 20 years, because it marks the official turnaround that yes, Riot was not only listening to the community and giving us a new game mode for the first time since I think Odyssey or Nexus splits, but more importantly, they just went all out. The skins, the theme, the overall positive reception from the community as we finally got the things that we've been asking for a long period of time. People had gripes with the KDA issue and the Spirit Blossom thing just being like a book to read through in game. Well, this time we got an actual fighting game in the game of League of Legends, like just in the client alone. And we already know how like outdated the client is. The skins for Soul Fighter felt new. They felt fresh and different. I didn't end up buying the, I think it was Prestige or whatever, Ultimate Samira skin. But anytime I see it in game, that skin's just absolutely incredible. Coco. And I don't think I even have to say a word about Arena. Yeah, people might have their issues that there's some things that are busted with it and people trying a little bit too hard at points, to which I would say, I really think game modes like this should not be on PvE. I think they should just go live and let people have fun with it all together. Like that's part of what makes Fortnite and Call of Duty and games like that so amazing, is that there really is no PvE. You just push it through and you deal with the bugs as they come, but everybody gets to experience it all together. When things like this go on PvE, it kind of ruins some of the aura around it, because we've already seen everything by the time that we can get our hands on it, because content creators plaster it literally everywhere. But even with that, people had a blast in Arena. I haven't seen the community this united in such a long time. People were optimistic that, like, yeah, Riot, when they want to, can make it work. And as long as they keep this level of effort going forward, we are in good hands. And League of Legends might actually be able to grow and do the things that we want as a community. And maybe we aren't just second fiddle to Valorant and back of the mind in Riot's priorities, which now, especially after the tweet from Pew Pew Laser saying that 2025 is going to be the biggest year, like literally life-changing for League of Legends. I don't even know what that means. But like the Soul Fighter event was the first time where like things really started to turn around and the community started to have faith again. And trust me, coming from an LCS fan, the moment you lose faith, when you stop caring. So the fact that we're back on track with League of Legends, yeah, best moment of the year. Hands down, bar none. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the new year. My name's David Shylock. I'll catch you later. Adios.